Right now, someone is testing you. They might be your boss, your colleague, your friend, or even your romantic partner. And here's the part that hurts. You're failing the test without even knowing you're taking it. 3 days ago, someone interrupted you mid-sentence and you just stopped talking. Yesterday, someone cancelled plans with you for the 3rd time this month, and you texted back, "No worries, let's reschedule." This morning, someone made a comment that felt like a punch wrapped in a joke, and you laughed along with everyone else. Each of these moments was an equation being solved in real time. Not by you, by them. They were calculating, what's the cost of disrespecting this person? And every time you smiled through the discomfort, every time you stayed silent, every time you made it easy for them, you gave them the answer. 0. The cost is 0. This isn't about being mean. This isn't about becoming aggressive. This is about understanding a truth that took me years to accept. Human beings don't operate on fairness. They operate on patterns. And right now, your pattern is teaching people exactly how to treat you. I'm going to show you the invisible algorithm that determines who gets respected and who gets overlooked. Not the way you wish it worked, the way it actually works. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at your relationships the same way again. The Invisible Scoreboard. Here's something nobody tells you. Every person you interact with is keeping score. They're not doing it consciously. They don't wake up thinking, today I'm going to evaluate John's boundaries. But their brain is running a background calculation every single time you interact. The calculation is simple: effort versus reward. How much effort does it take to get what I want from this person? And the answer to that question determines everything about how they treat you. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Person A asks you for a favor. You drop what you're doing and handle it immediately. 2 days later, they ask again. You say yes again. By the 3rd request, they're not even saying please anymore. They're just assuming you'll do it. Meanwhile, person B asks you for a favor. You say, "I can help you Thursday afternoon between 2 and 4. They work around your schedule. When they ask again weeks later, they lead with, "I know you're busy, but if you have time." They've learned that access to you requires effort. Same requests, different outcomes. The difference? You trained them differently. Most people think respect comes from being good, from being competent, kind, hard-working, loyal. And yes, those qualities matter, but they're not enough, because respect doesn't come from what you are. It comes from what you enforce. Think about someone in your life who never gets pushed around. They're not necessarily smarter or stronger or more important than you, but something about them makes people think twice before crossing them. That's not an accident. That's an algorithm they've programmed through thousands of small decisions that you probably never noticed. They don't over-explain. They don't over-apologize. They don't make themselves smaller to make others comfortable. And most importantly, when someone crosses a line, something shifts. Not with anger or drama, just a palpable change in temperature that everyone feels. That's the algorithm we're going to install in you today, the first impression trap. You've been lied to about first impressions. Everyone tells you, be friendly, be warm, be approachable, make people comfortable, show them you're easy to work with. That advice is destroying your value in the first 30 seconds. Here's what actually happens when you meet someone new. Their brain is asking one question. Where do I rank compared to this person? Higher or lower? Dominant or submissive? Someone I need to impress or someone I can manage? And they're using microscopic signals to decide. How quickly you smile, whether you break eye contact first, how much space you take up, whether you apologize for taking up that space, how fast you laugh at their jokes, whether you fill silence or let it breathe. These signals are being processed faster than conscious thought. Within seconds, their brain has categorized you. And once you're categorized, changing that perception takes 10 times the effort it would have taken to establish it correctly from the start. Let me give you a specific example. 2 people walk into a networking event. Person A immediately smiles wide, extends their hand enthusiastically, and says, "Hi, I'm so excited to meet you. I've heard so much about what you do." Person B extends their hand with a measured smile, makes eye contact, and says, "Good to meet you. I'm here because Marcus mentioned you're doing interesting work in AI." Same words? Not even close. Person A signaled, I'm beneath you. I need your approval. I'm grateful you're talking to me. Person B signaled, I'm evaluating whether you're worth my time. I'm here by choice, not desperation. Which person gets more respect? It's not even a contest, and it was decided in the first 5 seconds. Now I know what you're thinking, but I don't want to be cold or standoffish. Good, you shouldn't be. But there's a massive difference between warmth and submission. Warmth comes from a position of security. Submission comes from a position of need. When you're secure, you can be warm without being desperate. You can be friendly without being accommodating. You can be kind without being available for anything at any time. That's the difference, the interruption test. Let's talk about the moment that reveals everything, the interruption. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence. How you respond to this single moment determines your entire relationship dynamic with that person. Most people do one of 2 things. Option 1, they stop talking immediately and never finish their point. Option 2, they try to talk louder or faster, competing for airspace. Both responses fail the test. Here's what actually works, and it's so simple it feels wrong. You stop talking completely. You don't try to finish. You don't look annoyed. You just stop and look at them. Direct eye contact, neutral expression, complete silence. What happens next is fascinating. The interrupter suddenly becomes aware of what they did. Other people in the conversation notice, the dynamic shifts, and 9 times out of 10 someone says, "Sorry, you were saying?" Or the interrupter themselves says, "Oh, sorry, finish your point." But even if they don't, even if they just keep talking, you've accomplished something crucial. You've created a memory. Next time they think about interrupting you, their brain will remember that uncomfortable silence. That moment of social exposure. It becomes just slightly harder to do it again. Now here's the part most people miss. You only do this once with each person. If they interrupt you again after you've created that boundary, you don't repeat the silent treatment. You simply stop engaging with them as much. You don't announce it. You don't explain it. You just gradually become less available to them. This is what I call behavior-based distance. You're not punishing them. You're just naturally investing less energy in people who don't respect your boundaries. And that distance recalibrates everything. The people who respect you will notice they haven't heard from you and reach out. The people who don't respect you won't notice because they were only interacting with you when it benefited them anyway. Either way, you win. The explanation trap. This next pattern is subtle but devastating. Over-explanation. You make a decision and before anyone even questions it, you're already justifying it. I can't make it to your party because I have this thing, and also I've been really tired and my budget is tight, and stop. Just stop. Every word after I can't make it is lowering your status. Here's why. Explanation is negotiation. When you explain, you're unconsciously signaling that your decision isn't final, that if someone finds a hole in your reasoning, you might change your mind. You're treating your own choices as if they need approval. People who command respect don't explain. They state, I won't be able to make it, period, full stop. No apology, no justification, no invitation to question the decision. And yes, people will push back. They'll say, why not? Or come on, just for an hour. Or you can't make one exception. This is the second test. If you start explaining now, you've failed. Your boundary was just revealed as negotiable. The correct response is elegant in its simplicity. It doesn't work for me. Or I've already committed that time. Or simply, I can't. No elaboration. No defense. No guilt. What happens when you do this? Initially, people might seem confused or even slightly offended. They're used to a version of you that explains and apologizes. This new version is unfamiliar. Let them be uncomfortable with it. That discomfort is doing important work. Within a few weeks, you'll notice something remarkable. People stop questioning your decisions. They don't necessarily like all your choices, but they stop treating them as up for debate. You've trained them that your no means no, your yes means yes, and neither requires a dissertation. This extends to everything. Your boundaries, your preferences, your time, your energy. When you stop explaining yourself into corners, you stop being backed into corners. The availability paradox. I want you to think about the last text message you sent to someone who matters to you. How long did you wait before sending it? Be honest. Did you type it out immediately and hit send, or did you deliberately wait? Now think about how long they usually take to respond. Is there a pattern? Are you always the one responding faster? Always the one double texting? Always the one reaching out first? This is the availability paradox. The more available you are, the less valuable you become. It's not fair, it's not nice, but it's absolutely true. And understanding this will change your relationships forever. Your brain assigns value based on scarcity. This isn't a modern phenomenon, it's evolutionary wiring. What's rare is valuable. What's abundant is common. When you're always available, always responding instantly, always saying yes to plans, always making time, your brain gets categorized as abundant, as common, as something that will always be there. Meanwhile, the person who takes 3 hours to text back, who says maybe to plans, who has a full schedule you need to work around, they get marked as scarce, as valuable, as someone whose attention matters because it's not guaranteed. This creates a vicious cycle. The more you try to show someone you care by being available, the less they value that availability. And the less they value it, the more you try to prove your worth by being even more available. It's a death spiral for respect. The solution isn't to play games. It's to actually build a life where you're not sitting around waiting for other people's attention. When you genuinely have projects, hobbies, commitments, friendships, goals, you're naturally less available. And that natural scarcity creates natural value. But even if you're not there yet, even if your schedule isn't actually packed, you can still implement this. Build in delay. Message comes in? Wait. Not because you're trying to manipulate them, but because you're training yourself to be less reactive, to be less available on demand. When someone asks to hang out, you don't say yes immediately. You actually check your week. You think about your energy levels. You consider what else you have going on. Then you respond with a specific time that works for you. I could do Thursday at 7. Is infinitely more powerful than whenever works for you. The mirror principle. Here's a pattern you've probably experienced but never named. You treat someone with respect, consideration, and care. You show up on time. You remember details about their life. You follow through on commitments. And they don't. They're late. They forget things you told them. They cancel plans. They're half present when you're together. And here's what you do. You keep giving them the same high level of treatment, hoping they'll eventually match your energy. They don't. They won't. Because you've taught them they don't have to. This is where the mirror principle comes in. People will treat you exactly as well as they need to in order to keep getting what they want from you. Not better, not worse. Exactly that calibrated amount. If you keep showing up with full effort regardless of how they treat you, they've learned they can give minimum effort and still receive maximum benefit. Why would they change? From their perspective, the current arrangement is perfect. The mirror principle fixes this. You match their energy exactly, not as punishment, not to teach them a lesson, simply as a natural reflection of the effort they're investing. They take 3 hours to text back. You take 3 hours. They cancel plans last minute. You're suddenly less available next time they want to meet. They forget important details about your life. You stop volunteering information. You're not being petty. You're being honest. You're showing them the actual level of connection they've chosen by their actions. What happens when you do this is remarkable. People fall into 2 categories. Category 1, they don't notice and don't care. These people were never actually invested in you. They were invested in what they got from you. The mirror principle reveals this truth quickly, and you can redirect your energy to people who deserve it. Category 2, they notice immediately and adjust. These people were perhaps taking you for granted, but do actually value the relationship. When your energy level drops to match theirs, they feel the absence, and they step up. Not because you demanded it, but because they realized what they were losing. The mirror principle isn't manipulation. It's honesty. It's showing people through behavior what they're showing you through theirs. And it's one of the fastest ways to recalibrate relationships that have become one-sided. The consequence gap. We need to talk about something uncomfortable. Most people have no consequences. You can disrespect them, cancel on them, take advantage of them, ignore their boundaries, and nothing happens. They might feel hurt. They might complain to others, but to you, nothing changes. Access remains the same. Availability remains the same. The relationship continues exactly as before. This is the consequence gap, the space between boundary violation and actual consequence. And for most people, that gap is infinite. There's no bridge connecting what you do to what you experience. Think about someone in your life who's repeatedly disrespected you. How many times have you expressed that something bothered you? How many times have you explained your boundaries? How many times have you given one more chance? Now ask yourself, what was the consequence when they did it again? If the answer is nothing changed, then you don't have boundaries. You have suggestions, you have preferences, you have requests, but you don't have boundaries. Because a boundary without a consequence isn't a boundary, it's a hope. Real boundaries work like this. State it once clearly. I need you to show up on time, or I don't appreciate comments about my appearance, or I need plans to be confirmed at least a day in advance. No long explanation, no emotional appeal, just the clear boundary. Then, and this is crucial, you stop enforcing through words, you enforce through behavior. They show up late again? You're no longer there. They make inappropriate comments. The conversation ends. They can't commit to plans in advance. You stop making plans with them. No discussion, no this is your last chance speech, no detailed explanation of why you're pulling back. You just quietly adjust their access to you based on how they've shown they'll treat that access. This feels harsh at first. We've been trained to believe that good people communicate, that we owe everyone explanation and infinite chances. But here's the truth. People who respect you understand boundaries the first time. People who don't respect you won't suddenly start because you explained yourself more clearly. The consequence gap closes the moment you stop talking about boundaries and start enforcing them silently through access. And when people realize that disrespecting you actually costs them your presence, your time, your energy, they either adjust or they exit. Either way, you win. The reset moment. Here's the good news. It's never too late to reset. Even if you've been training people to disrespect you for years, even if every relationship in your life has the wrong dynamic, you can change it. But the reset has to be total. You can't half commit to this. The reset happens in one decisive moment where you stop being who people expect and become who you actually are. This isn't about announcing a change. It's about being the change so completely that people have no choice but to notice. Someone who always got instant responses from you now waits hours or days. Someone who could always cancel last minute now finds you genuinely unavailable to reschedule immediately. Someone who could interrupt you freely now hits a wall of calm silence. Someone who got lengthy explanations for your decisions now gets simple statements. That doesn't work for me. At first, people will test harder. They'll push boundaries more aggressively because the old pattern isn't working, and they want to reset it back to what was comfortable for them. This is the most important phase. If you cave during this testing period, you've actually made things worse. You've taught them that if they push hard enough, you'll go back to being the old version. But if you hold firm, if you maintain the new pattern despite the pushback, something remarkable happens. People stop testing. They recalibrate. They start treating you like someone whose boundaries matter because they've learned through direct experience that your boundaries actually exist. Some relationships won't survive the reset. That's not a failure. It's information. Those relationships were built on you being someone you're not, on you giving more than you received, on you having no consequences. When you change that foundation, the relationship can't exist in its old form. And if the other person isn't willing to build something healthier, then the relationship was always going to fail. You're just accelerating the timeline. The relationships that survive, that actually thrive, after the reset, are the ones worth having. These are people who respect boundaries, who match energy, who treat access to you as something valuable because you've shown them through behavior that is. The long game. The long game. Everything I've told you works immediately. You can apply these principles today and see results within hours. But the real power shows up over months and years when these behaviors become automatic. When you stop thinking about algorithms and strategies, and you simply become someone who naturally commands respect. This is the long game, building a reputation over time where people know instinctively how you'll respond to disrespect. They don't test you because they've seen or heard what happens when someone does. They don't push your boundaries because they know your boundaries are real. They don't take you for granted because they've watched you withdraw from people who did. This reputation protects you in ways you can't even measure. Opportunities come to you because people respect your time. Relationships deepen because they're built on mutual respect rather than one-sided accommodation. Conflicts decrease because people know you'll address issues once clearly and then enforce through action. But here's what nobody tells you about the long game. It's lonely at first. When you stop being endlessly available, some people disappear. When you stop accepting disrespect, some relationships end. When you start enforcing boundaries, some people get angry. You'll question yourself. You'll wonder if you're being too harsh, too cold, too difficult. You're not. You're being honest. You're showing people through behavior who you actually are and what you actually need. The people who leave weren't meant to stay. They were only there for the version of you that required nothing from them while giving them everything. The long game is worth it because on the other side of this lonely phase, you find something most people never experience. Relationships built on genuine mutual respect. People who see your value not because you're performing or proving yourself constantly, but because you've shown them you value yourself. And that self-respect is the most attractive thing any human can offer. Let me leave you with this. Every interaction you have today is programming. You're either programming people to respect you or programming them to test you. There is no neutral. There is no I'm just being nice. Nice without boundaries is just permission. The person who interrupted you earlier, they're watching to see if you'll let them do it again. The person who cancelled on you, they're calculating whether there's a cost to doing it next time. The person who made that uncomfortable joke, they're measuring whether you'll smile through the next one. Your response, or lack of response, is giving them data. And they're building a model of you based on that data. What model are you building? Here's your challenge. Pick one person in your life who's been testing your boundaries. Just one. The next time they do what they always do, respond differently. Use one principle from this video. Create one consequence. Close one gap. And watch what happens. You don't need to fix every relationship today. You just need to start showing people that the old patterns don't work anymore. That access to you has conditions. That respect isn't optional. It's required. The algorithm for respect isn't complicated. It's just brutally honest. And the moment you start running it consistently, everything changes. Not because people suddenly decide to be better, but because you've finally stopped accepting less than you deserve. Now go reprogram your reality.